From League Safe World Headquarters, it's Fantasy Football Almost Daily. With Paul Charch, Matt Harrison, Christian Peterson, and Brian Johnson.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Fantasy Football Almost Daily. I am Paul Charch and my co-host today, Brian Johnson and Christian Peterson. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hey, Charch.
We've already run down key topics relating to running backs, wide receivers in previous episodes. If you didn't see them, you can get those at League Safe Post. Today we're going to talk tight ends, and there's a surprising amount of intrigue around tight ends. It's sort of a forgotten position, not like kicker, which in the minds of you two should be forgotten completely.
That's right.
But for other people. Before we dive into that, just a reminder that if you have not used League Safe before and you want to try it out, use special code FFAD, promo code FFAD at the League Safe homepage. We'll add $10 to your league's pot. Free, $10. Just
it's a pretty good deal.
Free 10 free
Especially
dollars.
since you can use it for free from start to finish. So
You can use
we're
League
giving you
Safe
$10
for
to
free.
use a free service.
That's right. The service can be as free as you want it to
Yes.
be, and then we're throwing $10 into your pot. So that's an awfully good deal. Okay, let's dive into tight ends. Let's start with Gronk because it kind of all, and I think
Because you
sort of
love
the
Gronk.
head pin on all of the tight ends is Gronk, right? And you guys know how I feel about Gronk and my adoration for Gronk and all that. What is the exact spot in where you would take Gronk? Where should he go? The point at which, if I'm on the clock, I'm taking Gronk here. Christian, I'll start with you. Brian, you can go next.
Yeah, I've actually got him right at exactly where his ADP is, which right now is 12th overall. Last year I was on board with him in top 5 type range. I think you were
I was
advocating
one
for
overall.
first overall.
Yep.
And my take on the situation last year is that I agreed with you that he was just that much better than the next best tight end because Jimmy Graham's situation had changed. Jimmy Graham was always the one who was
Yeah, it was a
next
1A
up
and
after
1B.
Gronk.
Yeah.
And so his situation had changed, and it didn't look like anybody else was going to step up. But then you look at the rankings from last year, and a whole bunch of people stepped up. Jordan Reed actually scored more on a fantasy points per game basis than Gronk. He played one fewer game, but he scored more on a fantasy points per game. And there were 2 other guys, Greg Olsen and Gary Barnidge, who were within, I think, 2 fantasy points per game of Gronk. Tyler Eifert scored more touchdowns than Gronk last year. So there were a number of tight ends emerged. And I think most of the guys that I've mentioned, with probably the exception of Gary Barnidge, I think are still relevant now and are still top tight ends now. So I just think the gap has closed.
Maybe if you told me that Jordan Reed was going to play 16 games and would not suffer his 6th concussion, I don't think we're talking about Gronk in the same position. Right. If you told me that Tyler Eifert was going to play 16 games, that he'll play in September, he'll be available in week 1, which he won't be, we'd be a different discussion. But the reality is that those guys have got a lot of question marks, and those I think would have been the guys that we would have said, well, they could challenge Gronk for production.
Yeah, I mean there are more. I just think the position is deeper. I think Kobe Fleener in New Orleans, that changes things. He's a legit tight end. I've got him close to my top 5. I think Ladarius Green in Pittsburgh. I think he's going to be
it's not even on the
a
field.
legit guy.
I mean, we're a month out, but
they signed him for a reason, and they don't have anybody else. So I just think there's more depth this year, and there's more sort of premium depth, if that's a thing. There's more players that are capable of putting up quite a few fantasy points. So I'm still saying Gronk is a first rounder, so it's not like I'm punishing him, but I think his ADP is about right.
Brian, where would you take him?
He's a first rounder to me too, but I think it's just anywhere after the big 3 receivers, which are Antonio Brown, Julio Jones, and Odell Beckham Jr. I think you can justify taking Gronk at any point after that, despite the positional differentiator, which we'll talk about at tight end. I still think those 3 receivers are a tier, in their own tier, and as is Gronk as tight end 1. So unless it's like a 2 quarterback format, something like that, I can't argue Gronk at 4.
I can't either. I think that is the right spot. That's where I would take him. If I had picked 4 and those 3 receivers are gone, I'm taking Gronk there.
So, you guys aren't concerned at all about the 4 games that Brady's going to miss?
I'm not. I'm really not concerned about it. I'm a believer in Jimmy Garoppolo, as you may be aware. And when I look at just look at all the all the history that Gronk has. I mean, obviously Brady's, needless to say, elite quarterback, probably the best quarterback to ever play the game. So that will be a factor. But what are you going to do? Are they going to rely on the running game? No,
probably not.
Probably
they don't
not.
have a running back. They don't
Right.
have any wide receivers right now.
Right,
either.
no, right.
So
Julian Edelman, is about all they got.
There has to be. There's some level of decline there.
Decline between
from
Brady and
to
Garoppolo,
Garoppolo.
sure,
Like,
but it's only 4 games.
If you were to play those 4 games 1,000 times with Brady and 1,000 times with Garoppolo, Gronk would score on average
look what Barnage did
2 or
with
3 fantasy points less per game.
Manziel and
Yeah.
McCown.
I think it's a factor. I don't think we should just ignore it as if it's
I just see it as he's going to drop 20%. His output might drop by 20% for 4 games. To me, that's not material.
It is material though.
All right, let me ask you this: what about a draft strategy that says I'm going to go Gronk in round 1, and then at his ADP of late 3rd round, early 4th round, I'm going to take Jordan Reed, and I'm going to try to own that position. I'm going to try to create scarcity for all the rest of my owners and make it that just now it's two elite tight ends, harder for everybody else to do business at that position. Is that a viable strategy, Brian?
It is if you can bank on them both playing 16 games. Reed played 14 games last year. If you played all 16, you were looking at 99 catches, 1,100 yards, and 12.5 touchdowns.
Great numbers.
That's wide receiver 1 numbers. Right
that is
there.
wide receiver 1 numbers. So I could flex him and not think twice about it when he plays.
So yeah, and Gronk can do the same thing, obviously. But to what CP said, I think tight end is very, very deep this year. So I don't think you're going to scare too many people into starting a tight end run sooner than you'd want it to be started in your draft. So I wouldn't go tight end to start. It is viable, but there's so much risk with Reed. So just for that fact alone, I wouldn't go Gronk.
Okay, but now you're again making my. If there's
You're
so
right.
much risk with Reed, then we should be talking about Gronk moving farther up. Do you think it's a viable strategy to go Gronk Reed, or maybe it's a Gronk Eifert, or maybe it's a Gronk Greg Olsen, thank you. Yeah.
If you don't believe in Reed, then Gronk and whoever your second tight end is.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think the scarcity thing is a little overblown. I think you taking 1 extra tight end isn't going to cause the whole league to panic and or cause them to have a gaping hole in their roster, because I think tight end is deep enough in the 13, 14, 15 range overall that everybody's going to have a decent tight end.
What's the latest you can get Reed, you think? Third round would probably be the latest.
His ADP
third.
is late 3rd, like 36th overall.
Yep.
So late 3rd, early 4th. So I took a look at that, and in that same range, you're looking at the 20th or 21st wide receiver that you would be selecting in that range.
I think that guy's probably got more risk built into him than Jordan Reed does.
Or the 12th or 13th running back, and we all know running back gets really ugly after the top 5 or 6. And then you flip it around and you look at Reed's stats last year, and like you mentioned, he finished with stats equivalent to a wide receiver 1.
Yeah, he had Gronkonian stats and wide receiver 1
Yeah, so
stats.
now you can fill your flex with a guy who is going to get top 12 wide receiver stats, or you could pick the 20th wide receiver off the board to fill your flex at that point. You know what I mean?
So I think it's you're saying
numbers-wise,
it's viable, and I am too.
Assuming
it's
you
a viable
think
option.
Reed or one of those other guys is going to score at a rate equivalent to a wide receiver 1, which 4 or 5 tight ends did last year.
Yeah. We'll agree. We'll disagree on the viability of tight end 12 and 13. I think every year we think a lot of those guys are going to pan out, and then Kyle Rudolph doesn't. Who is your?
He's more like tight end 20 now, though.
Is Reed your tight end 2? Is he just a lock at tight end 2? Because I think it would have been Eifert had he stayed healthy. He would have been in that discussion anyway. Or is there somebody else that we should be thinking about as tight end 2?
No, I mean Reed is the guy. We saw the upside last year, and really he didn't even start coming on until later on in the season.
Right.
So health is just the elephant in the room. But I think the reward kind of outweighs the risk. That's sort of is my style as a drafter. I tend to go for the upside instead of the safety. So I do have Reed as my number 2.
Brian, how many tight ends are every week starter worthy? Are guys when you're looking at your cheat sheet right now at the tight end position, you're going, all right, I can go to war with that guy every week, and I'm going to be okay. And this goes back to whether the assertion was made incorrectly earlier that's 13 or 14. That is not. I don't think that's going to end up holding water at the end of the day.
I think it will. I don't know. It's really deep this year. I mean, outside of the top 12, you got Antonio Gates, Martellus Bennett, Zach Miller, Eric Ebron. I think those are all guys with top 10 tight end potential.
I don't know if Eric Ebron's going to play another down.
Well, it sounds like he avoided serious injury, so I'm looking at that glass half full. And then there's sleepers.
But you're going to tell me Eric Ebron? You're going to tell me Eric Ebron is an every week starter you're happy to go to war with?
If healthy, yes.
Based on what?
He's been emerging. I don't have all the stats in front of me. He has stronger.
He has done nothing.
That's done career. Nothing.
Nothing.
He's top 10. Where is he in this list here?
I've got
19.
I've got Ebron way down at like 19. I don't think he's a factor. But at 10, I have Antonio Gates. At 11, I have Jimmy Graham. Mm-hmm. He's pretty good.
But every week, are you comfortable saying Jimmy Graham's going to be an every week starter for fantasy owners?
Yes.
Okay.
He was last year until he got hurt. He wasn't the Jimmy Graham that we had grown to know and love, but he was a starter.
Nah.
You got Martellus Bennett, who I think is legit in New England. I've got Gary Barnidge, last year's number 3 tight end, at 13 this year. Mm-hmm. Julius Thomas played really well after he came back from his injury last year.
Yeah,
Dwayne Allen in Indy has performed okay when Coby Fleener has been out in the past, and there's a bunch of targets to be soaked up in Indianapolis. So I think Dwayne Allen is an okay guy. I mean, I don't know if I'm playing if I'm stuck in a spot where I have to take the 11th or 12th guy. I probably also take the 14th guy and I mix and match.
Yeah, you might have to.
You know what I mean? So if I'm quote unquote stuck with Jimmy Graham, maybe I add Dwayne Allen a few rounds later just in case.
Over Eric Ebron?
Or Eric Ebron.
There are 90 catches and like 160 targets gone from Detroit now. You've already proved your distaste for Marvin Jones there.
I don't like him
So
either.
Who's going to be catching the ball?
Golden Tate.
All of them?
Golden Tate could lead the NFC in receptions. That wouldn't surprise me. He led the team in receptions each of the last 2 years when Calvin Johnson was there.
I got nothing
His
against
numbers
Golden
without
Tate,
when Calvin was either not on the field or just
really
playing
good.
decoy are ridiculously good.
They're really
but
good.
But back to tight end, there's your guy Jared Cook. He was apparently an animal, and the Packers played some sort of inter squad scrimmage, and Jared Cook was just all over the place. And
I'll go back to Will
I'm
Tye,
sure he's
too.
in the best shape of his life too.
Will Tye, last 5 games last year, 10th in catches, 8th in yards, and 2nd in touchdowns among tight ends. He's a great sleeper for the Giants, in my opinion. Vance McDonald, people are high on him. He started producing. I know you don't like me going this
Charch,
deep.
Where does your list of tight ends that you're comfortable with end?
Mine ends at 8 with Antonio Gates.
Okay.
And so I feel like there's
Eifert
about
must
8.
be out of that mix.
No, Eifert's in the mix as well. Fleener's out.
Okay. Ladarius
I like
Green.
Green's out because he's not healthy. I mean, I got to draft today. I can't draft a guy that they don't know when he's coming back. Yeah. So Green's out right now.
Zach Ertz.
Zach Miller's out. He's not in the top 8.
Ertz
is out, not in the top 8 either because
Julius Thomas.
Too many rotational tight ends.
These aren't guys I'm saying should be in your top
Julius
8, but they
Thomas
all have
is not
that
in my
potential.
top 8.
I think all these guys have
Yeah,
top 8,
I just think
so
those are none of those guys. Am I going to feel comfortable going to war with on an every week basis?
What if you have 2 of them though?
Well, now I got to guess right, and it's not
you
all
play
guessing.
the matchup.
It's not all guessing, but it's adding. If I have Gronk, I don't have to worry about this. If I've got Reed, if I've got Eifert healthy, if I've got Olsen, I don't have to worry about it. That's my guy every week. That's what I want in my tight end position.
So that's true, but there's also an opportunity cost to owning Gronk, right?
Correct.
Because
I'm giving up
if
wide
you have
receiver.
Gronk, you don't have to worry about this for tight ends, but now you do have to worry about it at wide receiver or running back because you've got a group of guys
that is absolutely true. I'd rather be finding help deeper at wide receiver than deeper at tight end. I think the path is a lot easier.
Okay.
All right, that's it for today's show. We highly recommend that you check out League Safe, of course. And again, the promo code is FFAD, Fantasy Football Almost Daily. Also, Safe Leagues. If you have not yet tried Safe Leagues, take a look at that. If you'd like to find a league, and especially an Empire League, where you could draft Rob Gronkowski, the first overall selection, you could do that at Safe Leagues. Real leagues, real money, and a real commissioner, Brian Johnson.
Yeah, I'm going to go probably approve like 5 trades when I go back to my desk. They're very active leagues, a lot of fun, so check them out.
And we encourage you to follow us on Twitter, Coolerheads29.
Correct.
BTXJ, Paul Charchian. That's it. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.